I would say I'm not the most studious when it comes to Quran, but I did read it once in Arabic, and nowadays if I read it, I would read it in English, so I actually understand it. And my intention for coming here today was because I usually come here on Thursdays for this series, so that's a reason.
That's good. No, just you keep passing it. Go ahead, stand up. Just share your name, what your connection with the Quran is, and what you're here for.
My name is Anissa. So my name is Anissa, and I came to present my work on Thursdays 5 years ago.
Okay.
I used to memorize it, and I still do, but it's kind of hard, so I'm stuck in middle two skills. I'm just German right now. Working with the but yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
My name is Suzuki. My connection with Quran has changed a bit. Growing up, my parents wanted me to memorize it, but I didn't really understand it. And now I think one of my goals is to actually try to genuinely understand it, whether it be through interpretation or just reading it. And I, just like Elisa, I come here every Thursday. It's like a ritual. I come here to see the community, to learn, and to advance.
Okay. That's wonderful. So I'm seeing a trend here that people are at different stages of the journey. That we mentioned memorization. There's been a heavy emphasis in our community on memorizing, which is actually a good thing because society is moving away from memorizing anything. We kind of just have everything. You can just search, you can take notes, but there is a cognitive ability, and it becomes a part of you when you have it internally. So that's a good thing. But in the Quran, is there an ayah that says to memorize the Quran? Anyone? Well, how would you say, do they not memorize the Quran? Do they not memorize it? أَفَلَا يَحْفَظُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not memorize? That's not an ayah in the Quran, but there's so many ayat in the Quran. أَفَلَا يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Do they not reflect on it? We're talking about understanding. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ. There's different words even for the word understanding or reflection, etc. So at the end of the day, the Quran is a message for us to transform our lives, like the Quraysh and the Ansar and the Aus and Khazraj, all the people in Mecca and Medina, they transformed that area. So it's not just for reading and memorizing, it's for transformation. That being said, there's intrinsic barakah and blessings in the Arabic itself and reading it, so we don't want to discount that in any way. But the goal is to reflect on it. That's what we're here to do today. So I'm glad you guys are here and you guys are consistent and regular in that. So let's go to the brother's side. You want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Saad. In terms of relationship with the Quran, one of the things I try to do is have a daily reading. So I learned it from one of our teachers about reciting Surah Mulk every night, just having anchoring with the Quran that way. As far as, what was the question, sir?
Intention.
Oh, intention. Yeah, so I was mentioning to my wife about this, that when I was coming, that oftentimes because I'm giving Jummah khutbahs and things like that, I never get to attend my older brother's khutbahs and speeches. So I'm excited to learn from him, as I have since I was young. Just one clarification on his role. So he's the founder of Fawaqih. And I'm mentioning that because part of the reason that I'm excited to learn from him is I've seen in my own personal life, he's someone that's had a lifelong relationship with the Quran. And very early, coming from a background where we could read Arabic, but like many of us, we don't understand what we're reading. I saw him, I remember actually a time when he got off translation, never went back, and he started accessing the Quran in Arabic. So as the founder of probably the most esteemed Arabic institution in the country, Quranic Arabic institution, he's actually lived this. So I'm excited at a personal level to learn from him for that reason.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Kumran. In terms of the Quran, I know there's an ayah in the Quran where Allah talks about making it your companion, and I try my best to do that, whether it's trying to read it weekly. I grew up always reading in English. Alhamdulillah, more recently I learned the tajweed and reading in Arabic, so I'm in the stage of my hifz right now, and I can't go a day without listening it. And my intention coming here was one of the things, our local Imam, Dr. Nasimi, he humbled me one day, brought me to his office and talked about how you know, in our generation, our time right now, the access to knowledge is just walking into like a cafe. As compared to back then, they would have to watch CDs and like YouTube videos, and like you would have to travel far. So I wanted to kind of take advantage of it. And also, I've been to your event with Ustad Mohajid and Imam
Yeah.
Majid. I also went to Ustad Salah Omar's event, so I always love your guys' events. So.
Yeah, it's very difficult to learn with CDs. You have to make sure they're not scratched. There's devices, and then VHS. You guys even know what VHS is? Some of you know. You rewind it, and it's not an easy business. Now you just walk into a cafe, have a little coffee. So alhamdulillah, there's a lot of resources, a lot of development in the community, and people went through quite a bit of sacrifice to get to this point. We were talking about Yaqub Mirza, Uncle, when they were organizing, when they were getting together, the resources and infrastructure wasn't there. They were building it, right? When some of our teachers, they were studying, they would get sick. They would have to go abroad. There would be areas like even when we were in Syria, and I went a little bit later, there was secret police there, right? In which you would have to sneak in and out of one of our teachers, Sheikh Muhammad Yaqubi. You wouldn't know where the dars would be until the morning of, a little bit before. They would tell you where the dars is, and everyone would have to go in small batches because the secret police wouldn't allow people to gather. And they wouldn't allow people, if you had a beard, you get questioned. And people were put in jail and things like that. So a lot of sacrifices, a lot of difficulties went into people getting that knowledge to us. I mean, we know the stories of the Sahaba. We know the Sirah. I mean, Saad teaches the Sirah quite a bit. We know the challenges they went through, and sometimes when it's too easy, we take it for granted. So I appreciate you saying that. I'm going to go ahead and start now. I know we got a number of other people. We'll try to incorporate other people's interaction, especially the people in the back who haven't explained. If you ask a question, just go ahead and introduce yourself and answer those questions so we can weave it into the program. So one thing I wanted to mention with Dr. Yaqub Mirza, I mean, that's been on my mind since yesterday when I found out he passed away. Who interacted with him in this room? Did anyone have an interaction with him? 1, 2. Yeah, you guys, mashallah, he was a giant in the community, very quiet giant, but I would say one of the top 3 or 4 most influential American Muslims ever. And he was in this community. People know him from the work in this community and they're amazed. People know him for work nationally and they're amazed. People know him from the work internationally and they're amazed. And so he was very quiet, very humble. He lived in the same house for a number of decades, even though he could have lived in any mansion he wanted, right? He drove the same car. You would see him and you would see he's unassuming. But then if you look at the amount of institutions he's built and funded and the endowments he's set up and the companies he's ran, you would be mind-boggled, right? And so really, let's take a moment. We're talking about Fatiha. One of the things we learned in Syria, one of our teachers, his young son, who's very famous munshid, Sheikh Mu'adh al-Nas. You heard of him? Let's also make the intention for him as well. When I met him, his father, his son had just passed away. And we went for a janazah in Houston. And all he asked was for people to read the Fatiha for him. That's it. And for us, the Fatiha is something we take for granted. We read it how many times a day? Quickly. 17 at least, right? So if you multiply that by 300 times, if for some people not praying every day for valid reasons, and then if you multiply across the number of years, you're reading it thousands and thousands of times. You're spending hours and hours a week reading Fatiha. So, but we take it for granted. But that has such an opening. It literally means the opener, right? The opening. And so when we read the Fatiha, let's read it with that intention for Dr. Yaqub Mirza. Bismillah. Bismillah. So I wanted to share a little bit about my story, as I said I would. So I didn't start with the best of intentions for learning Arabic. My intention was I wanted to get an A in Arabic class. I started at University of Michigan as a freshman, and it was a 5-credit class, and I took it because I had some hard pre-med classes I was going to take. I was going to take biology and physics and organic chemistry, and I wanted an easy class. So sometimes we look at Arabic and Islam as, hey, this is something easy. This is something I'm going to do on my side. So that was my intention. It was not a good intention. And I figured, okay, I can read the Quran. 3 months is going to be easy. They're going to be learning Alif, Ba, Ta for like 3 months. I'm just going to whiz through this. And alhamdulillah, it was pretty easy initially. And I did get an A in the class, fortunately. I mean, it would be terrible if I started Fawaki and I was a really, really bad Arabic student, right? So I was a decent Arabic student. And to be honest, in some ways, I was working harder for it in class than I would have if I took it at the masjid, because it was my GPA was on the line, right? So that's something to think about, is how much time and effort and what our motivation and our incentives are for learning the Quran. But that forced me to actually learn it, right? I didn't learn it in Sunday school. So many people come to me and say that, hey, I went through 12 years of Islamic school, or I went through all my life of Sunday school, and I still don't understand the Quran, right? Which is a problem. And so we need to fix that. It not just fixed on the institutional side, it's not just the curriculum side, it's also our own intentions and our motivation, because the resources now are available, especially now that we've developed the Fawaki curriculum. I have the books in the back. You guys can take a look at it. The entire goal was to make the process as seamless and easy for anyone else to learn it, so that they don't have to go through those struggles and challenges, and they can get through it, check the box, and move on using the tool. Because at the end of the day, I'm not personally, and people get surprised when I say this, I'm not super obsessed or fascinated with Arabic itself. Although the more I learn it, the more I get amazed by it, by the beauty. It, at the end of the day, is a tool. It's a tool for what? It's a tool to prevent us. So when I started getting into Arabic at Michigan, I started seeing things in the Quran I'd never seen before. I was starting to, the Quran I had read all my life. I'd memorized a lot, Juz Amma at least. I wasn't able to understand it. And so then I ended up doing a study abroad in Morocco. And a funny thing that happened in Morocco was that there was a sister with us. She was a little bit older than me. So she was like we used to call her Baji. She was engaged to a good friend of ours, who's a famous singer. Do you guys know Dawood Warnsby Ali? You guys don't know Dawood Warnsby Ali? Okay, look up Dawood Warnsby Ali. He's an amazing songwriter. Sounds like kid songs, but they're actually very deep. So I was a big fan of his. And so when I went to Morocco, in the same institute I was studying at, the Arabic Institute, she was there and she was engaged to him. And so we thought she was like a celebrity, right? She was and the reason I'm bringing her into the story is that she was a Desi background, right? And she would get proposals from Moroccans all the time. And we'd be like, why? What's going on? And she said, I don't know, but they love Indians. They hear that I'm Indian, and they just give me a proposal that they want to marry me. And then we figured out why this would happen is that they were really into Bollywood. And so they were like, oh, you're from India, you must be connected to Bollywood. And so they would really like be very fascinated with Indian culture. And so when you're walking through the old city, this was in 2003 when I was there, you're walking through the old city in Fez, which we just came back from Fez. I hadn't been there for like 20 years. It's beautiful old city. Anyone been to Morocco? No one's been to Morocco? You guys haven't been to Fez or Morocco? What are you doing? Just hanging out at Gawa? All right. You guys have to try to make a trip. I mean, there's a direct flight from here to Casablanca. It takes 7 hours, like going to California. Okay. So I think I would suggest doing a Kahwa youth Morocco trip. It will be super worth it. We have a guide right here. He has all the context in Morocco. Saad just took a trip there with the group. And so the old city, there's no cars. They were just donkeys. Like literally, you'd have to watch where you're stepping, right? If you know what I mean. And there's a bowl. It's a bowl. The older you get to the bottom, it gets older and older. So half the time I'd be studying Arabic. Half the time I'd just be walking around the old city, which you would think it would make your Arabic better, but it really wouldn't, because they were speaking like very dialectal Arabic. So I'd speak Fosai. I would get by. It was helpful, but it definitely was, the experience itself was also pretty cool. And so you'd walk around, you hear Quran quite a bit. Now I heard Quran a lot more than I did back then. And then every other story you'd hear Bollywood. In Hindi, you're hearing Bollywood. And so if you think about it, these people, they were singing along. Like there'd be guys singing Bollywood songs, and they have no idea what they are saying. It was really funny. So that was a side story to make the point that I thought it was very silly that they're singing these songs and they had no idea what it meant. I mean, they thought the tune was nice, etc. But I was like, imagine if they actually understood what they were saying. Part of it, they probably would not be impressed and they wouldn't want to listen to it. But imagine for the Quran, right? That we're standing there, right? We're praying, and I come up with these puns in my random times, and I have to write them down just not to forget. And I was thinking that we stand, but do we understand? We stand. I mean, how many hours of Tarawih people are sitting in there, right? In Ramadan, calculate how many hours in one Ramadan. 40 hours, 60 hours, 60 hours plus. Some people are there for the first Tarawih to the last Tarawih, and they have laddu after they finish, right? So they're in it. But how many hours are people studying Arabic in their life? Average would be less than 40. So one Ramadan, if somebody just took it and just learned, and our goal with what we started setting up is that within a short period of time, how can you unlock the language of the Quran so that everything you do since then, you're benefiting from the understanding. So we have limited times in our life. Yaqub, uncle, he was 78. He was about to turn 79. He just passed away, and he lived a full life. Some of us may live longer. Some of us may live less. We have limited amount of time, and we have limited number of Ramadans. We have limited number of prayers, limited number of Fatihas we're going to read in our life. But why not get more out of each one of those? Especially if we are busy, it's a good investment. So I would encourage all of us to make an intention to start that language journey, because it's easier than ever now. It's just we have to have that discipline, that goal, and the intention to do it, and you can unlock it, right? So that's one thing. So now, if you are standing in Ramadan, and imagine, especially starting with just Fatiha itself, and if you understand one more thing today about Fatiha, how many times are you going to benefit from that this week? 17 times 7. My math used to be great. I won a state championship in math in Indiana. I mean, it was Indiana, so okay, the competition wasn't like here or California, but now I can't do math anymore. It was 17 times 7. What is it?
119.
100?
19.
Over 100 times, okay? Over 100 times, you're going to get that benefit when you're reading, right? You'll have more presence in your prayer. You may slow down. You may reflect on it. Then if you multiply that by 50 for the year, we're talking about thousands of times very easily. So this investment, even more than any other part of the Quran, is huge. So I would recommend triaging Fatiha. And there's a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose it. There's a reason why there's a secret in it. And it's the husn, there's a husn al-khatam, the beauty in the ending, and there's a beauty in the beginning as well, and how things start, right? Things end the way they start, right? With the intention first and foremost. So I would wanted to say, welcome, this is Kahwa. And now, alhamdulillah, Fawaqih, just fast forward, just organically developed. And now we have a full curriculum, 6 levels, and then we're adding a 1 level for people to help them learn to read Quran as well. Because we never focused on reading, it was mostly on understanding. But now there's such a high need to help streamline the process of being able to read better, that students can have a strong foundation. So there's actually 7 levels that are not going to happen. And each one has 3 textbooks and have exercises. So we have some samples of the textbooks there to really streamline your process. Alhamdulillah, we take online cohorts. We have 20 online cohorts based on your level. That's why I was very interested in knowing your backgrounds, because you can't just jump in and start anywhere. You have to know where you're starting and where you're going. And so it's very structured in that sense. Each cohort has 30 to 40 students in it. So we have a total of 1,000 students that study online with us with the live cohorts. So we try to make it as accessible as possible. Alhamdulillah, over these years, since we've started a little over a decade, we've trained about 100 instructors. Half of those have been Fawaqih graduates themselves. So people have gone through Fawaqih, and say Shamim here was a TA with us, alhamdulillah. And so we have people that are in our midst that anyone can take this journey, and it's designed for any background, whether you have high-level education, you have low-level education, whether you're younger, if you're a high schooler, or if you're older. There's people that are in 70s and 80s that are taking Fawaqih. They're like, hey, this is the last thing I want to do, right? I want to do this. I want to take this to my grave. I want to understand the Quran once before I pass away, because I spent all my life with working and raising kids and doing this stuff. Now I have time for myself, right? So there's amazing group of diverse students. Now there's students from all over the world that join. So I would encourage you guys to start a journey, whether it's on your own or you have the structured resources to learn a little bit of Quran every day. Okay. Stage life. So, if you are having, there's a lot of movies coming out, right? What do they have to get you enticed to watch the movie? A trailer, right? And usually the trailer is really short, like 2 minutes, but the movie maybe 2 hours, right? So think of Fatiha as the trailer for the Quran. Okay? Think of it as the trailer. And what's amazing is that actually in our deen, there's this understanding that the entire knowledge of the world, of the dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put into the Quran, right? The final revelation, it connects to reality. So all knowledge, even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, beginning of the story of creation, عَلَّمَ اللَّهُ آدَمَ أَسْمَاءَ, that Allah taught Adam the names of things. So there's something special about names. So one of the things we do at Fawaki is we actually dissect each and every person's name as to what it means. So I would encourage you now, you can just search it on ChatGPT. Hey, ChatGPT, what does my name mean, right? And you can research your name, because some people, half the people who actually take the class, they didn't actually know what their name meant. And some of it was Arabic, some of it was non-Arabic words, but it was really fulfilling to understand what your name meant, just even your first name. So that was exciting. And so Allah taught Adam the names of things. If you think about it, it's pretty fascinating. We take it for granted that the way we communicate with the divine and the divine communicates with us, how do we communicate with Allah? Dua. And how does Allah communicate with us? Sorry? Yeah. Some of you may have a personal relationship with, but I'm talking about generally with the Quran, right? The Quran, Allah has sent us the Quran to communicate with us, right? Now, we're not like the pastors, like, God spoke to me last night, and that does happen. SubhanAllah, Oha, even Allah does wahi through two prophets, but even the word Oha, very fascinating. That same word is used for others, including females in the Quran, that Allah inspires them in different ways. And we may all have certain times in which we get some sort of inspiration, some sort of intuition that is some angelic or or we have some sense, right? Even they say the mother's sense. There is this, we think there's the divide between the seen and the unseen, but it's not as impermeable as we think. There is things like that we have. We get a good feeling about something. Now people just call it what? I don't even know what this means, but they call it vibes. Oh, that's a good vibe, right? Okay, but there's this instinct or things that we have now that are pretty amazing. So the names are so important in how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught the names, and He communicates. Words are the ways. And what are words? Words are vibrations and their meanings, right? So it's pretty fascinating. That's our connection. It's not a physical thing. It's a very it's the sound base, and it's motion. It's some sort of motion with the vibration of noise and waves, right? And some of you guys know this better from physics and things like that. So one of the amazing things about the word we mentioned is, do you guys know what the word for ring is in Arabic? I kind of gave it away. What's ring? And now all the people wanting to get married are thinking about rings, and my sister's like, how many carats? When I got engaged, I had to call somebody. I was like, I don't know how to get a ring, because I got engaged the same day. I wasn't expecting to get engaged that day, and I had to go get a ring. And so they're like, just worry about CCC, clarity, cut, and carats or something like that, right? So I'm not talking about those engagement rings, but inshallah, all of you guys do get married who are not married. But what is ring in Arabic? Khatam. And what does that sound like? Anyone know Urdu? Finish. Khatam means to finish, right? And so I'm not going to call you out, but you said you read the Quran once and then you were done, because you did your Ameen, you did your Khatam, right? We call it Khatam?
Yeah.
Right. In Arabic ones. Yeah. And so we have this trend, and that's great. And there's some cultures that don't even have that. But this idea of reading the Quran once and checking the box, which is important. But some of it has to do with the words that we use. Like one thing I hate is when somebody says somebody passed away, they say, in Urdu, sometimes they say what? Khatam ho gaya. Have you heard that? Wo khatam ho gaya. Have you guys heard that? I've heard that so many times, that person's finished. And I'm like, it's not the right way to say it. You just take to say it ordinarily, but it's not. That's the aqidah issue, because that's not the end. That's the beginning of their next life, right? It's a part of your journey. It's a transition. In Arabic, sometimes they use intiqal. Even in Urdu, they use intiqal, right? What does intiqal mean? Intaqala ila makan ila makan, to move. So that meaning, even the words we use, we have to be careful, right? It means to move, intaqala. right? And so the transition, that's a better word than khatam. Even when we finish the Quran, if we say khatam and we think of it as finished, then it's done. But what happens when we do من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس? At the end of all Ramadan, you hear that, what happens? I get goosebumps, right? If you've been, and sometimes I don't think I've prayed every single Tarawih, but there's some uncles, especially, those uncles that are just there every night. They will not miss it, right? They will miss the iftar. They will not sleep. They'll get fired from work, whatever, but they will be there for Tarawih from the beginning. And then when they hear it, they feel the accomplishment, of Surah Nas. Then what happens? What does the Imam do immediately? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alif Lam Mim. Why do they continue? They don't just stop there. They usually cycle around, and that's with the Quran. When you finish Surah Nas, you're supposed to start again from the beginning and start a second cycle, right? Because it's not. We look at the Quran. When we say the Quran, what are we thinking about? When you close your eyes and just envision Quran, what do you see?
The words of Allah.
You see the words of Allah? What do you actually see? Like, what are you seeing right now? Close your eyes. Tell me what you're seeing. Describe it. Close your eyes.
So when I finish the Quran, you say?
No. When you close your eyes and I say Quran, what image comes up?
He doesn't see it.
You don't see it.
No, I don't.
Okay, you're way beyond it. Oh yeah.
I see a gold embroidered book with tafsir colors inside.
Okay. Anyone else? When I think of Quran, I think about this. Thanks to King Fahd, printing complex. They printed this, and this is like any other Quran. I'm like, I can barely read this. It is a different script. I can only read this script, right? And maybe the bigger one that's blue, right? But we often think about this. But when the Sahaba thought about the Quran, what did they think about? They think about yes. Sorry? The meaning behind it, potentially, most of them understood the Arabic, but they're thinking about the Prophet reciting it to them. That's how they first hear it, is from the Prophet. So they connected so closely the message to the messenger, and they're thinking about it as an oral recitation. Some of them never even saw the Quran in writing. They would use it on parchments, but it wasn't even compiled. It's called Uthmani because it was compiled after the Prophet's death, shortly after, and it was very rigorously authenticated. But it wasn't all compiled in one book. There were people who memorized it, right? The Hufaz, when there's a lot of Hufaz passed away in a battle, then they said, we have to compile this or else it's going to be lost. So it's in people's hearts, right? Anzalnahu ala, what did Allah reveal it on? Ala qalbik, that it was revealed upon the Prophet's heart. So we are engaging the Quran with our eyes and with our minds and with our hands, but the Quran was revealed on his heart. And it will only be, just like when we touch the Quran, we don't want it to be in a dirty place. We don't want to read it in the bathroom or take it in the bathroom. We don't even want to have Ayatul Kursi. Some people are worried that Ayatul Kursi, one part of the Quran, they go to the bathroom with, because it needs to be in a pure place, right? So one of the prerequisites is our heart to be pure, not just the physical environment, not just our wudu state, everything. The more purity we bring into our lives, the more the Quran can enter. Just like light enters areas that are dark, if you let it, right, the Quran will enter, inshallah, when there's a pure environment. So going back to the khatam, that when we finish it, think of this khatam, a ring, is that the Quran is not linear, beginning to end. In fact, it wasn't even revealed like this. It was revealed in a different order. It was compiled like this. It is circular in that sense. It doesn't have a beginning, doesn't have an end in that. It's the speech, kalamullah, speech of Allah. There's infinite amount of meaning and wisdom in it, that even if you read Fatiha over and over, you read it like something completely new. If you are reflecting on the meanings, you'll get so much out of it, inshallah. Even if you eat the same food every day, you get more nourishment. Same thing with the Quran. That's why you never get bored of the Quran. I don't have anyone who said, most books you read, a novel, you read it once, even if you love it, it'll be very hard to read it again. If you watch a movie and then somebody's like, let's go watch it again, you'll be like, I don't know if I want to watch that. Even if it's the best movie you've ever seen, some people watch it a few times, but the Quran, subhanAllah, every time we read it, we go around and it's almost like a tawaf, right? We go round and round, you're getting more and more out of it. It actually exponentially increases the more we engage it. And so I would look at the Quran not as linear, but something. And then what would be that diamond on top? Fatiha. Surah Fatiha, right? So the Fatiha is not, you wouldn't say it's just the beginning of the Quran and then it ends. No, it actually, the Quran and the meanings revolve around Fatiha. So all the meanings of the universe, as we mentioned, contained in this book, that we have tremendous knowledge in this book that we have access to. In a time in which there's so much falsehood out there, we have an anchor that we know is true, which is a huge advantage in all areas because there's so much falsehood and so much lies out there. We know that this is truth because it came from the person who only spoke the truth. وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. He did not speak from his own whims. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. It was a revealed revelation, right? So let's think of it like that. Think of it linear. Let's not just think of it as a book. Let's think of it as something that's brought to life. There are people that are the walking Quran. The Prophet was described by his wife as kana khuluqul Quran, that his character was the Quran. So the Quran can be, when we say Quran, we should think about somebody's character, right? Hey, this person, and Uncle Yaqub Mirza, subhanAllah, you could say that he really embodied a lot aspects of the Quran. I'll just tell you something about him, and I'll connect it to this as well, that sometimes when you read the Quran quickly, or like if you read his resume, right, of what he's accomplished, and Anwar Ibrahim, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, he posted a message on Facebook about his passing, and he shared all the accomplishments that made your mind boggle. If we did one of those, it would be amazing about all the things he started, right, all the institutions. But that is a bio and a resume. And why do they do an interview? If you have the resume, why do you have to do an interview? Interview is when you experience the person, you interact with them, right? And then they say the Prophet ﷺ, the more you interact with him, the more you love them. Because the closer you got to him, the more details you got. So there were people who hated the Prophet because they heard rumors, and there's still people who hate the Prophet, but they got to know him more and more and more. That's why it's amazing to read the details of the Prophet's life. And some of the stories of the detailed interactions of specific stories. And my brother actually is an expert in this area. He has a lot of the stories that they teach the youth, and they have a Sunday club program in which they actually go through the stories of the prophets, not just the facts and not all the history only, but actually the intimate stories and the details. That's where beauty, if you go to an art, right, there was a recent art that was being sold for like just a few dollars, and then they discovered it was a masterpiece, and it went for $19 million. Because the art experts could recognize the details of the strokes, that all the beauty was in the details. They say the devil is in the details, but the beauty is also in the details in the stories. So Yaqub Uncle, when I interacted with him, I don't look at all the institutions he started, the funding he did, Adams. I look at the few interactions I had with him that I have a good feeling about, and they were beautiful. One example was he took us out for dinner, okay, just me and a few people, and they paid for the dinner, and then he asked his wife, did you bring the cash? Did you bring the cash? And she's like, yes. And so she took out a wad of cash. And so then they went and tipped everybody by cash, right? So they were very concerned about making sure that the tip was made. That was his big concern, right? That everyone who served them received a tip. I thought that was very beautiful. And there's countless of those types of little stories that won't make a bio, that won't make any sort of speech about, but you have those personal interactions with people and you love them because of those little things that they do, those little things. Even when people pass away, you don't remember all the big things they do. You remember all those little particularities of that person. The Quran is similar, right? If we read the Quran quickly, if you read the translation, you will miss the master strokes. You will miss those tiny details about why was this word picked? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say laka, right? So my daughter, she's 2 years old, and so she's doing something really cute. She evolves and she does different cute things, right? And so recently she's been saying, I said, do you want to read a book? And she'll say, Baba, I want to read a book with you. And she keeps saying that. Anything I say, because I've been traveling a lot, so she hasn't spent that much time with me. And so she'll always say with you. And like, should we go to the swings? She says, yeah, I want to go to swings with you. And I think that one with you is so cute that she says that. And subhanAllah, in the Quran, every time you hear, just think of that little kid saying with you. Every time you hear leka, look at the interaction between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet. Because at the end of the day, we are actually just observing this interaction, right? They say the Quran was revealed to each and every one of us. And it was. At one level, read the Quran as if it's revealed to you in that time of need. It will give you what you need, inshallah. But ultimately, we're observing this interaction first and foremost between Allah and the Prophet. And it's a beautiful interaction if we are privy to look at that. And anytime Allah says, laka, for you, it's not even saying lakum. Lakum is, kum is all of you. There's a way to say, so in English, can you say that? Can you say you all? You know, in the North, we can't. In the South, they say it. They say y'all, right? They made a word to say you all, right? There's no English word that's you plural. But in Arabic, kum is for you all, but ka is very specific. So there's this intimacy and connection that when you say with you, right? So it goes both ways. Leka, and then when we're speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Fatiha, what do we say? Iyaka. We're speaking to Allah and we're having a direct one-on-one connection with Allah, which is amazing. If we just reflect on that, it's amazing. That letter ka is so personal. So that's, if we look at the beauty and we look at that through Fatiha, and I want us to now have that lens in which we slow down and read the entire Quran with that lens of going into the details. Why was this word picked? You guys know the difference between hamd and shukr? When we say alhamdulillah, we can just talk about the rest of the time about just that one word. Alhamd. What does alhamd mean? It's gratitude and praise. Now, gratitude, what's the word for gratitude in Arabic? Shukr. So what's the difference between hamd and shukr? Okay. Why is, we can say ashkurullah. We can say I thank Allah too. So why hamd?
Because I think hamd is like shukr, is that you can just say shukr.
Yes.
Hamd is like kind of like acknowledging, like, you know, your power, everything that you do, and I'm like, you're like, instead of me saying thank you to you, what I can do to say thank you is like do it within my actions and like, you know, who I am. So
yeah, that you're really getting very close to that. So we start with, we're going to do this without, but alhamd. If you even look at the tajweed, and Imam Majid taught us this, that he calls it sound effect. The effect the sound has on the meaning. And the more I look into that, it is fascinating. And part of the reason people love listening to Quran in Arabic, especially if you get a good qari, right? What are your favorite qaris? Yes. Anybody have a favorite?
Yasir al-Dosri.
Who?
Yasir al-Dosri.
Al-Dosri, okay. Anyone else? We listened to Abu Bakr Shatri growing up. There's also Sudais, a very favorite of ours when we used to go to the Haram to listen to. But everyone listen to different qaris, and they'll get different energy and meanings just from the way they do the sound, how they slow down certain times, how they extend it certain times, right? So if you look at shukr, you just say it, right? Sha. Sha is a letter in Arabic that has to do with spreading. So you guys know words that have sha in it? What are some words that start with sheen? Sorry? Insha'Allah, sha, right? Shajara, it's a tree. Tree spreads. Shams, spreads. Yeah, right? Shaitan spreads, right? Shar, evil can spread, right? So look at sheen and see even the way it sounds. Shh, it has a special tajweed quality that has spreading. Shh, right? So shukr is like that. Ha is deeper, right? There's a depth of it. Alhamdu. Even if you think about the chants, right? When people do chants in these temples and things like that, they go right? I was thinking about that. The ha is a special letter, and those sounds have an impact on us, right? That's why the Quran is a shifa. It's a healing, and they have even some people do ruqya when someone's sick. They do that, and there's a healing power because there's something about noise and sounds that can also affect us in amazing ways, and even make us emotional. If some people just hear the adhan in the Muslim world, and they're drawn to tears. They have no idea what it means, right? Because it's the power of words, and words can be used for good, and they can be used for bad. We've seen that. So words are so powerful that we have to be very careful with how we use our words, but we also have immense ability to to capture more meaning. So alhamd, right, is different from shukr. We start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now, when I was saying all the knowledge is contained in the Quran, there's this insight that some of the people close to Allah have this special understanding. It's not something that I'm making up. I think Imam Ali also shared this as well, that the entire Quran's meaning is in Fatiha. Okay? And then the Fatiha's meaning is in Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And the Bismillah's meaning is in the Ba. And then they say the Ba's meaning is in the dot underneath the Ba. All right? Now that sounds like, okay, that's a little bit out there, right? But think about it. If you look at the Quran, what are the topics that the Quran covers? What are the topics? Name out some topics. Dunya akhirah, okay, just context. What else? What are themes in the Quran?
Could you translate dunya and akhirah?
This world and the next.
This world, hereafter, okay. What are other themes in the Quran? What are the topics covered in the Quran?
Mercy.
Mercy, okay. What else?
Aggression.
Okay, there's stories. There's stories of the prophets. There's stories of the people who were destroyed, right? There's talk about the details of the Day of Judgment. There's names of Allah. All these things. Now, if you look at Fatiha, it contains all of that. It gives you a description, the most accurate description, comprehensive description of Allah that we have is in the beginning of Fatiha. The entire thing is a dua, right? We're asking for help. The entire thing is talking about the different groups of people. Those an'amta alayhim, all the times that we talk about anybody good in the Quran, it's included in an'amta alayhim. All the prophets, all the salihin, all the good people, all the people who were destroyed, they were destroyed in two ways. They either went astray and they left the rules and they left the deen, or they got the anger of Allah. They knew they had the knowledge and they didn't have the action. So either through knowledge they went astray or through wrong actions, right? So all of that is summarized so beautifully in the Fatiha. Now, how do you take the Fatiha to Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? How is the Fatiha summarized in its essence in Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim?
So basically in Fatiha, we are seeking for guidance from God.
Right.
And Bismillah starts in the name of God.
Yes. Right. So if ultimately anything you do in your life, if you truly embody it and start it with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, that is the ultimate goal, is to take something mundane and transform it. Like the alchemists were trying to why were there all these alchemists trying to transform metal into gold, right? It was a symbolism by transforming this material, worthless world into something infinite and something meaningful. And taking just some motions you do, right? And sometimes we just do the motions, transforming that into the ultimate act of ibadah. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْإِنسَ وَالْجِنَّ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That we created all of this for you to worship. And it's not just the movements, but you take those movements, you take some words, and you transform it to something that's divine, that's for the divine, and that has tremendous meaning. We take these lives and bodies we have that ultimately we just discard of and we bury, and we use them to gain Jannah. We use them to worship Allah. We use our bodies to worship. We could just be sitting down and just worshiping Allah in our minds, but we actually are using these bodies to worship. So we're transforming something mundane into something profound. And so whenever we do Bismillah, that does that. It is the alchemy. It takes that metal and transforms it into gold, and that is the ultimate purpose. So ultimately, if we start with Bismillah, and everything is done in the name of Allah. Now, why the Ba? How does the Bismillah summarize in the Ba? What does the Ba mean?
So Ba means like with the help of Allah, right?
No, just the Ba. Not if it was with the help of Allah, I can see that. Oh, no, you said with the help of Allah.
Like,
Okay, now
yeah,
you're close. You're close. Maybe even more than you think, but maybe you know. Okay, so Ba is with. Just how would you translate Ba? With. Anyone else? So with is not that exciting, right? Even if it was Ma'a, it would be a little bit more exciting. Ma'a is with as well. But Ba, why? Ba is like a harf. You know what a harf, right? Harf there's three types of words in Arabic, right? What are the three words in Arabic? Yeah, I have it here. Okay, right here. What are the three types of words in Arabic? Arabic can seem tough, but it's actually pretty simple at the basic level, right? There's three types of words: verb, noun, and particle. Okay, how do you define a verb? Verb has action, but what does that mean? Something's happening, but there's time involved. That's how in Arabic, a very precise definition. Time is involved in a verb, noun does not have time. Okay? So when you talk about a particle, ba is a harf, which is, this is a side point, but it's very profound. That a particle is no time and no independent meaning. Both noun and verb have what? They have independent meaning. But the harf, the ba, which we're saying has the meaning of the Bismillah, which has the meaning of Fatiha, which has the meaning of the Quran, which has the meaning of the knowledge of the dunya and the world, is contained in the ba. We're taking a worthless, timeless, meaningless, astaghfirullah, I don't want to say worthless about anything about the Quran, but just the letter itself does not have any intrinsic meaning, and you transform it to have all the meaning. Now, what is that an analogy for? That we could take this dunya that Allah has no worth for. That if Allah had any worth for the dunya, He would not have given a drink of water to the disbelievers, right? That He would have given all of it to His most beloved Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam died with, they could name the things that he had. He left nothing of the dunya, right? And he didn't go after the dunya. And Yaqub, mashallah, Yaqub Mirza uncle, he's like that in a sense. They did not have, even their family, they could have all the wealth they want. They would drive a Camry, right? And so that useless, worthless dunya that we have, we can transform it to the mazra al-akhirah. That it is the where you plant the seed that then germinates and gives fruits in the akhirah. So that's so much symbolism, so much meaning in that. Now, you were very close. That ba is not just with, which Ustaz Sayyid Shamim knows. It is ba of isti'ana, the ba of seeking help. So you actually don't say with the name of Allah. That's how people translate it. So it doesn't give you that meaning. But seeking help in the name of Allah, like out of desperation, like literally wanting something, needing something, Bismillah, with the ba al-isti'ana, the seeking help. And even if you look at the ba, it looks like what? It looks like this. It looks like you're making dua. It actually looks like you're seeking help physically. So in the same, now it's fascinating. It doesn't say billah, seeking help in Allah. We're not even seeking help in Allah. What are we seeking help in? The name of Allah. Allah is teaching us that to approach Him, we go through what He has taught us. We don't just go, I'm traveling to Allah, Sayyid Allah, let's go to Allah, right? No, you follow the Sirat al-Mustaqim. You follow the teachers. You follow the right way. You follow the names of Allah that He taught us. Allam Allahu asma, that Allah taught Adam the names, right? Which is fascinating that we're seeking help in the names of Allah, not just directly in Allah, because we're going through the vehicle and the means by which He's taught us, and we know Allah not directly in terms of our learning. Our learning is through what He's taught us, to how to get to know Him. Okay? So that is pretty fascinating. So the meaningless particle connects to the name of Allah and becomes meaningful. So if we connect to the names of Allah, maybe we can become meaningful too. And it's so connected. What happens here? Beams. How do you spell ism? How do you spell ism? Okay, I'm going to use this finally. Okay, if can somebody write this? Is anyone Arab here? Any Arab? Can you write ism? No? Okay. Okay. So if you write it, you normally would write it like this. And everywhere in the Quran is right like that. Right? Because ism has an alif. Alif, Sin, Mim, Ism. You write it, but this Alif is gone. This is where I'm talking about the details. Why is that Alif gone? It's connected right to the Sin. Why is it gone? Because they say kathratul istikhdam is because of many usages. The Arabs dropped it because it was used so many times. But that's interesting. But there's a wisdom here that some reflect on, that because it's so connected to the ism that it just joins and it becomes it just combines into a conjunction almost. That it's ism, that bad that's worthless. I shouldn't say worthless. This meaningless becomes connected to the name, and it doesn't connect to Allah. The lafz al-jalala here, we call this lafz al-jalala. In Arabic, when you say Allah, you don't say connect to Allah, because then you could say something wrong with your words, and words are powerful. We say lafz al-jalala to indicate the word, the written word Allah, right? It's not that is not merging with Allah. Lafz al-jalala, the word, the letter Allah, the word Allah is connecting to the names, because the names become a part. And what are we taught to do? That we're supposed to take on some of the names of Allah. Right? There's certain names that if Allah is generous, we try to be generous. Ar-Rahimuna yarhamuhum ar-Rahman, irham man fil ard yarhamukum man fis sama. That the rahmah that we're supposed to have with people, that if we have mercy with people on the earth, Allah will have mercy with us. If we embody Allah's names in the best of ways, that there's this approach of that's how we can, and somebody mentioned this, that they said that if we can be trustworthy for other people, it will make other people be more trusting in Allah, because we're teaching them how to trust. So when a parent is there for their child, they're actually teaching that child how to rely on Allah if they're relying on them, right? So there's some beautiful insights there. Okay, so I'm gonna speed up a little bit. So Rahman and Rahim, what's the root for that? So one of the things you study with Arabic is you learn the roots, and that's how you can get some tremendous meanings. Rahma, Rahim. What does Rahim mean? Yes?
Okay, actually, I know the meaning of the two. I forget which one would mean. One of them means it's just that it's merciful, and then one of them is that it's mercy. Mercy specifically for humankind.
Right. So we'll get to that. We're about to get to that. It's a great point. We'll hold that thought. What does Rahma mean? Rahim mean? What does Rahim mean? Rahim means, I need somebody from this side. You guys need to know this. Womb. It means the womb. That's why Sulat al-Rahim, what does Sulat al-Rahim mean? Salah is connected to the word for Salah. Salah is to connect. Salah, ittisal, is to call in Arabic. Ittisal. It's like a phone company. They're called Sharikatul Ittisal, right? Ittisalat in UAE, yeah. Ittisalat is the company in UAE that does a lot of the phone network, right? So Salah is a connection, right? From that. Silat al-Rahim is to connect with the Rahim. Connect with the womb is connect with those who are connected to you through the womb. So your siblings share the womb. Your mother was the womb that you came from. You know, all of our relationships are through the womb. And the mercy of a mother is connected to the womb. So if you think about Rahman Rahim, instead of mercy and beneficial and all these things, in the Arabic, it's connected to that rahmah. That is very difficult to translate. That mother-like mercy that comes from bearing that child, right? And wanting. So that's interesting. I'm going to skip this part. Go back to what the sister was saying. Rahman and Rahim. Okay, who studied tajweed? One? No one else? Two? Few people. So part of what we do at Fawaqih now is we've incorporated tajweed. Our third book in every level includes tajweed in it, because we realize that tajweed is part of Arabic. You cannot learn Arabic in the Quran without pronouncing it correctly, because then you can misunderstand it if you pronounce it incorrectly. And there's so many funny examples of how people mispronounce things and they cause big problems because they pronounce. One example was that you guys know what qalb is in the Arabic? What is it?
Heart.
What's kalb? Dog. So it's very, if you say, there's tip to brothers who are not married, you don't go to a sister and say, anti kelbi. You're my dog. Yeah, you're trying to say anta qalbi, you're my heart, and you can say that wrong, right? And so one of the Turkish students, he said that we call the revolution, a revolution is inqilab. Inqilab, because qalb means to flip. You guys have had a dish that sounds like that? What's the dish that you flip? Maqluba is because it's qalb, you flip it, right? So it actually will help you in your cuisine sense as well, right? So a lot of nihar is what? Morning, because you're supposed to eat it. It's so heavy, you're supposed to eat it in the day. Halim is what? Halim in Arabic is what? Forbearance and patience. But halim takes a long time to cook, right? So there's all these interesting connections even in the words we use for food and things like that. So anyways, he said that he started laughing in the class I'm teaching. I still remember it. I'm standing there, he starts laughing. And I was like, why are you laughing? It's not funny. It's just a Form 7 verb in the qalaba. Qilab, it's actually revolution. It's kind of a serious thing. And he said, oh, in Turkey, we call it inkilab. Inkilab. I said, okay, why is that funny? He says, well, we say Ataturk's inkilab. So instead of saying Ataturk's revolution, we're saying Ataturk became a dog. And so he thought that was funny. Anyways, Fawaki students have been cracking up on the ground with this, but you guys have not been initiated to nerdy Arabic jokes yet, right? So anyways, the two forms for tajweed, what's the difference between Rahman and Rahim in terms of how you pronounce that mad? Yes?
The Rahim, like you elongate at the end.
Yes, so Rahim could be Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. You could go 6 counts. Rahman, you can't go Rahman. Some people do that. They're trying to make things that sound beautiful and they're not following the tajweed. But Rahman is 2 counts normally, and Rahim can be up to 6 counts. So there's one clue there into the difference. 2, they say that Rahman is fil dunya, Rahim fil akhirah. Ibn Abbas said this. That Rahman is everyone gets it. It's like the sun. The sun, everyone gets the heat of the sun. It's not specific. But Rahim is like the sun ray. Right? There could be a cloudiness, and you could actually have seen it in which you could see this dark right here, and then there's a sun ray right here. So it's specific. It's not general. It's not am. Am is general. It's khas. It's specific that Allah chooses some mercy that He gives to specific people, and bil mu'minina ra'ufur rahim. That for the believers, it's rahim. And what's the insight for that? That Rahman is like, what are words that are like Rahman in Arabic? Rhyme with Rahman in that pattern. Huh? Quran. Okay. Burhan. Okay. Well, you guys are getting very deep. Just in terms of like, we're in a coffee shop right now. Well, what are things that when do you come to the coffee shop? When you're, you guys are getting too high level. I'm talking, Jo'an. Like, I'm hungry. Okay, Jo'an, or I'm thirsty. Abshan, right? Or Nasyan is like to forget, or Nasan is like tired, right? So all these things, but they're temporary states. So if you say Rahman, you can say, oh, Allah is merciful, but it's going to be temporary because this pattern is a temporary pattern. It doesn't have to mean it's forever. Versus Rahim is a sifa thabita. It's a lasting characteristic. So the two of them combining give full of Rahma, because you're full. Rahman has a fullness. Rahman, even when you say it's kind of full, and Rahim, it's long. So there's like this 2-dimensional thing going on. The X and Y axis to make it, because volume is needed and you have to have 2 dimension. You could have a ray that has no volume, and you could have another ray that's not, but you put the two together, and now you have a 2-dimensional volume, which gives you continuance and fullness. So that complements each other. So they say in the Rahim is also for the Akhirah. For the believers, he's Rahman and Rahim. Because Rahim, if you say Rahim, it even sounds like it's going into the Akhirah. Right? So it's beautiful in that sense. You don't get that from the English. Okay? Malik and Malik, this is just an entire study. Actually, one of our Fawaqih students, she came to our first Fawaqih program we ever did in Indiana. And now, mashallah, and her uncle is Dr. Yaqub Mirza, who passed away, Saima Yaqubi. And she is a master, probably one of the foremost experts on the qira'at now. And she studied tajweed with my wife. It's amazing, right? And now, mashallah, she went on, she memorized the Quran, and she learned not just one riwayat, she learned other riwayats of Quran, and now she's taught an entire cohort of sisters who are like the top Quran teachers in the US. They just finished last year, and she gave them ijaza in the riwayat of the Quran, the qira'ats. And she's written books on this now, mashallah. She's advising our advanced curriculum because what we do is we look at comparing the different qira'at of the Quran, because the Orientalists and some people, they attack the Quran that has different versions because of this. But in fact, it's one of the most beautiful aspects of the Quran, that the Quran has been revealed. Sometimes you hear Sheikh Ismail reciting in Warsh. We had a sheikh that had come from Mauritania, if anyone remembers, a few years ago, and he was reciting in Qalun. And some of the brothers in the back are like correcting them, right? They don't know that we need to learn that there's different qira'ats that was revealed accurately, and they were memorized in different regions of the world. And some people have all the Quran, and they add dimensions to meaning. One example of that is Maliki Yawmiddin versus Maliki Yawmiddin. What does Malik mean? Owner. What does Malik mean? King. So if you think about it, that Allah is the Malik and Malik of the Yawmiddin. So both those meanings are there, and that's why the alif is not written out long. It's written out with that little dagger alif al-khanjara, because you can remove that and it's Malik, and you can add it as Malik. So the script with the qira'at, what's beautiful is the script accommodates all the qira'at, which is amazing. So the qira'at differences will be based on the markings and the dots and things like that, but they will add immense amount of meaning, and some of the interpretations of the Quran differ because of the qira'at. Yes?
I don't understand what qira'at is. It's like different pronunciation.
Qira'at are different. The Quran was actually revealed to the Prophet based on different dialects that were taught. The different tribes had different dialects. So the Prophet received the Quran in different dialects of the Quran, of the Arabs, which is something that many of us don't know. We didn't grow up learning that because it's too complex. We read the simple version of everything, right? But it actually adds so much layers of beauty and meaning that it could be read in 7 to plus different ways. Yes.
One specific question about like a qira'at. So in Khalf al-Hamza, they say alayhum versus alayhim.
Alayhum or alayhim?
So
Yeah.
what is the meaning difference between that?
So that you got to take level 5 and 6 Fawaqih for that, because we go into all the different meanings of how the qira'at actually enhances the meaning. It's not an argument that the Quran has different versions. And actually it's amazing because the Prophet ﷺ wasn't an expert in, he didn't write, let alone know all the dialects of the Arabs, but the Quran was revealed perfectly in all those different dialects of the Arabs at the time. So that's an entire study that we should have an expert come in and talk about Qur'an. But this is one example in which owner and king are two different things. What's more powerful, a king or owner? Owner? Okay. Well, you're a capitalist, pure capitalist. We're like, you own something here, you know. Who needs to be a king, right? No, but and so on the some hand, owner has complete authority. They can do whatever they want. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has complete authority, but a king has something that the owner doesn't. They may not own everything, but they have majesty. They have respect. They have some, right? Yeah.
Current era, probably not.
Yeah. I mean, you're a revolutionary, mashallah. You're just like off with the head, right? So basically, but the meaning you can see, right? There's this majesty and this power and dominion and respect with the king, because owners could just be, anyone can be an owner. But then on the other hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has full dominion and majesty. So there's a complementary aspect to those meanings. This is one example. Okay? We talked about hamd and shukr, so we're over there. One amazing thing, we talked about verb, ism, and harf. So what are the verbs in Surah Fatiha? Yes. Yeah. Yes, in is prepositional, with is prepositional. So the first letter is a preposition. We talked about that, the harf. The rest of the first half of Fatiha are only nouns. And what did we say nouns have? Different than verbs? No time. So why would the first half of Fatiha, and Omar, this is a discussion question too. So we're getting into a little bit of discussion too. So why would the first half of Fatiha not have any time? You can't say it. You know the answer. You know the answer.
Because it applies regardless of which time period you're in.
Right. So we don't say Ahmadullah, I praise Allah. We don't say anything about us in here. We're praising Allah outside of us, outside of time. Because Allah is outside of time. And Allah does not need our praise. So Alhamdu, all praise is due to Allah. This is a fact. We're just saying a fact. We're not saying an opinion. We're not trying to insert ourselves into it. It's just a fact about Allah that all praise is due to Allah. There's a humility in that as well. And you'll see the humility in Fatiha throughout. There's an adab in the Quran that we can all learn from, in which we don't say, I worship, a'budu, na'budu. We worship collectively. It's not I. Who says I in the Quran? Shaitan, Pharaoh, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la. Right? What does Shaitan say? Shaitan says, Khalaqtani, you created me from this way. So like this concept of like humility, right? Na'budu, we worship. Okay, I'm not saying I worship, but even here that humility is not there because I'm not there. This is it. This Allah has all praise, regardless of us saying it or not, right? Now, what happens with this shift here with the second? So there's a shift here in Fatiha that they say is like you are at the door of the kingdom, and you say these magic words, and then the door opens, and you enter, and now you're in the presence of the king. And so there's a switch. It's called iltifat. Iltifat means to switch. Anybody know what luf means? Luf, in Egypt, they would always say luf al yamin, luf al shimal. It means to turn. Luf means to turn. Okay? And so iltifat is a turning. Okay? And so there's a shift here. It's called a dramatic shift from third person, in which you're talking about outside of presence, to a interactive second person tense. And if you are subtly looking into Arabic, you'll notice when these shifts and these types of strange things are happening for a reason. And that shift now allows you, after that praise, now you're having an intimate conversation with your Lord, with Allah. Iyaka, you we worship. It went from third person to second person. And it went from only nouns to verbs enter. Why do verbs have to enter? Because time enters. Why does time have to enter? Because we enter, because we are within time. And we're speaking within time, whereas Allah is outside of time. And the problem with English is that we cannot translate outside of time. Can you say a sentence in English without time? Without a verb? Anyone try? No. So how would you translate Allahu Ahad? Allah, can you say it louder?
Allah is one.
Allah is one. How many words? 3. In Arabic, how many words? 2. What did we add?
Is the verb.
Is a verb. And it's a what tense verb? Present. What's the past tense of is? Was. What's the future tense? Will be. So we're translating Allahu Ahad, Allah one, outside of time, to Allah is one. Now you're putting Allah in time. So you actually would need to translate Allah was one, Allah is one, Allah will be one, because Allah is not changing. So you got to say all that stuff to try to communicate that to those 2 words, because English you cannot speak unless you're a caveman, outside of verbs.
One quick.
Yeah.
Something someone said that even if you were to do that, translate Qul Huwallahu Ahad as Allah was one, Allah is one, Allah will be, you're still putting Allah within time.
Within time.
Because it's past, present, future.
Yeah.
To take him outside the concept that the first, I remember learning this verse from you, that first part of Surah Fatiha is completely timeless without verbs. It's actually really powerful. Yeah.
So we actually, by putting it in English, we're putting our own constructs and our frameworks into the Quran, which creates some problems, which is why Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyya, we have revealed the Quran in Arabic, la'allakum ta'qilun, so you can gain intellect. And there's a very rich process of learning and reflecting on this through that language as well. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Iyaka na'budu. Now, what does iyaka, iya mean? And I asked Arab, there's only a few, like 10% or less Arabs in here, but most Arabs in the Arab world do not know any of this. And I've interacted with them, and I've had hundreds, probably over 1,000 Arab students that have taken Fawaki. We've had 5,000 students altogether. 1,000 plus have been Arab. And most of them, even if they're native, they may have a PhD in engineering. Probably not in Arabic, but if they haven't studied Quran and Islamic studies to a higher level and they're not ulama or they're not like into the Arabic language, most of them don't know this stuff. They can go speak, they can order stuff, they can talk, they may have good knowledge, but they won't know Quranic. And that's why we focus on Quranic Arabic, because it's a lost science amongst the Ummah. Not just the 80% that are non-Arab, but even the Arabs, most of them are not taught this. So they're not looking at it. And in fact, they think they know. They think they know, so they don't actually they have less of an interest or knowledge that they even need to know. They say sometimes, if you think you know something, it's called complex ignorance. If you, at least you know and you know you don't know, it's ignorance. But if you don't know and you think you know, then you actually don't even have the motivation to learn. So that's sometimes people have the problem of that as well. So iyaka, what does iya mean? What does iyaka? How would you tell iyaka na'budu?
It is you who.
Sorry?
It is you who we.
It is you, but there's something that we would translate more than that. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. What is that?
You alone.
You alone. Where did we get alone from? And most people answer and say, iya must mean alone. Iyaka na'budu. Only you we worship. The cat is you, right? Iya, what does it mean? Only? What is only in Arabic? Does anyone know only in Arabic? I have to rely on you because you're.
I say bus.
Bus. Bus is only. Okay, there's another word. Yes?
Is it wahid?
Wahid is alone, one. You would say faqat, only, right? I want this faqat, like that's all I want, right? Innama al-mu'minun, believers are only brothers, only. But iya does not mean that. Iya, the only thing iya does is bring that kaf in front of the verb. Normally, if you would say, so there's something called asl fil kalam, the original way it should be said. If you know the asl fil kalam, when you see a deviation in that, you're like, whoa, that's different. If you know Arabic and you understand, and you follow along, you're like, whoa, that's a really hard way to say that. Why would you say it like that? But everything in the Quran is maqsood. Every word Allah puts in, hamd versus shukr, na'budu versus abudu, everything we can reflect on. We can't do that with any other book, with any other literary device, because the author could have said that I just put in whatever word I thought. I didn't think about this synonym. I didn't think about that. It wasn't every word was intentional, but here every word is intentional and memorized and precise and accurate. SubhanAllah. And so we can reflect to this level. And if you say, why did Allah say, Iyaka na'budu, not na'buduka? We worship you. Why would Allah say, Iyaka na'budu, and not na'buduka? We worship you. That would be the easier way to say it. Why? Yes.
I didn't know this.
Okay, then you can say it. Yes.
So you cannot add anything to it.
You cannot add anything.
Adding comma.
Exactly.
I worship you and I worship you.
Exactly.
So this is like N.
It's N.
Closes the.
So when you say, I love, what do you guys love? Say something.
Watermelon.
I love what?
Watermelon.
Watermelon. Okay. Mashallah. Okay, watermelon. I love watermelon. Do you love your mom?
Yes.
And I know you do, because mashallah, you're a very good son. And so when you say, I love watermelon, you could say, and my mom. You should probably say, I love my mom and watermelon. But you get my point. You could add wow, and you could say something else. I love something else. So then you wouldn't say, so if you want to say, I only love my mom, right? You would say, uhib ummi faqat, only. Or innamal uhibbul ummi, right? So, but over here, you can get the meaning of only by putting it before. You. So if you say, to your spouse, right? That's the theme here. You I love. is different than saying I love you. Because like you love me, but you didn't do the dishes last night. You were watching TV. You did this. You did that. Because it was not. But if you say you I love, right? It's like everything else is negated because you can't say you I love and. So that's a silly example that shows you why iyaka na'budu. Allah, you only, because structurally, and this is the point that many people make a mistake, right? Is I've gotten into pickleball recently. Okay, who's into pickleball? Okay, wait 10 years. Okay, when your knees start hurting, you guys are all gonna get into pickleball. All right. So anyone play tennis? Anyone play tennis? You play tennis? See, that's gonna go away, right? So tennis is like going overseas and studying Arabic. Okay, it's like going overseas. Some people can do it. You gotta be young. You gotta be wild. I did it. Alhamdulillah. The vocab apps for learning Arabic. You just learn vocab. 99% of the Quran, 80% of the Quran, 70% of the Quran in like 1 month. Okay, which is good. I'm not discouraging you from learning vocab. I also like playing ping pong. All right, but it doesn't give you an exercise. It's just fun to play. Okay, it's fun to play, but it doesn't really get you the exercise. Pickleball I love because it's between tennis and ping pong, right? You don't have to go overseas, and you don't just learn the vocab, you're actually getting an exercise, okay? So that's my pitch for pickleball. So my point here is that the structure of the language, the grammar and the morphology, it goes beyond just the vocab. You upgrade from ping pong, in which you are actually, there's meaning unlocked in the way the Quran is saying things. The words used, the morphological structure, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, that component is not going to be taught through quick vocab. The structure of why Iyaka na'budu versus na'buduka, it will be translated the same way both ways. But the detail, that nuance is in the structure. What is missing in the language, right? When you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, just for example, okay, is that a sentence or a phrase? It's a phrase. So it's not a full sentence. What's missing there? Why is it a phrase? In the name of Allah or with the help of Allah, even if we get the meaning of with the help of Allah's name, the Rahman Rahim, it's with, you don't start a sentence with. What is missing there? Anyone? You can put in anything there. You can say Abda'u, I start in the name of Allah. Aqra'u, amshi, like anything you do, you can put in there. It's kind of the fill in the blank. You can put any verb or any noun, like you can make it into a noun as well. And so it's a phrase. It's not a complete sentence. So if you just know the vocab, you're just translating it, but you don't realize that there's something missing there, so you're missing that part of the beauty. And there's so many places in the Quran in which something is missing, and that adds meaning. Not just what's there adds meaning, what's taken out also adds meaning. Okay, that's my little pitch for why the grammar and the language holistically is important, and not just learning vocabulary words, which are, you can't learn the language without vocab, but that's adequate, but not that's important, but not enough. Okay, now look at this. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. So there's a symmetry here. Iyaka is repeated. Now Fatiha has so few words that if there's any repetition, is very important. So the Rahma, Rahim, Rahama is in the Fatiha how many times? If you include Bismillah. 4 times. That's very significant. That Rahma, which is mercy and this mother-like mercy, is in the Fatiha, the short surah, 4 times. Iyaka, which doesn't have a meaning, it's just a placeholder, really, for the ka, because you can't put the ka by itself. You have to hold it with the iyaka. Is here twice, and the first one is na'budu, and the second is nasta'in. So what's the connection between why na'budu first and nasta'in second? Why we worship you and we seek your help? Why is that ordering there? Yes.
To me, I don't know, it just seems very, it just seems kind of self-explanatory. Like first we worship him regardless, no matter what, whether or not.
Yes.
Like,
It's not for a benefit. We do it intrinsically, right? And it's also, we do that stuff and then we ask, you say the hamd and then you ask for what you want. You do the worship of Allah and now we're asking for your help because we've turned to you. We can only, who else are we going to ask for help from if we actually truly worship you, right? Now look at this. The entire Fatiha revolves around this wow. We forgot the wow. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, right? There's an entire symmetry of the Fatiha that revolves around the wow. Over here is ibadah and here's nasta'in. What's everything that comes before na'budu? What is all that? Alhamdulillah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, what is it? It is, all of it's dua, because Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, guidance straight right, is actually the core part of the dua is after. But it's all about Allah, describing Allah. So we cannot properly worship Allah unless we know Him. Right? So who are you going to worship? If you don't know Allah, that's why you have to know the 99 names of Allah. You have to know who Allah is. That's why Aqidah is very important, because you actually learn Allah's characteristics, who Allah is. You know Allah through His signs as well, by experiencing the signs and being amazed and say, SubhanAllah. You know Allah through what the Prophet taught us. So that knowledge, ilm, is very important before we do ibadah. You have to have some knowledge to do ibadah. Even how you do ibadah, you have to have some knowledge. So this is knowledge of Allah and knowledge. Then that leads us to what? Being able to do ibadah. Now, we do ibadah, but we are deficient. We can't even do ibadah. What would we say after we pray? Yeah, astaghfirullah, but we ask for forgiveness. What do we say? The dua, in order to ask for Allah, Allahumma inni nasta'inu. When you're asking for help for doing the worship. Aini, thank you. Allahumma aini ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. Allah, help us to remember you and to thank you and to perfect our worship. Right? So we're asking Allah for help. Even in the ibadah, we cannot do it without Allah's help. Then, what's the rest of this? اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Is what? Is what type of help we're asking for. So everything after the wow is about the help and detailing that. Everything before the wow is the ibadah and who we're worshiping. So there's this beautiful symmetry in the Fatiha, and you'll find this symmetry throughout the Quran. They call it even in Ayat al-Kursi, there's a symmetry in the entire Quran. If you compare, we'll do this maybe not next week, the week after. In Surah Nas and Surah Fatiha, they seem like they're opposite parts of the Quran, but there's actually a symmetry between those two surahs specifically. And most surahs, the ending of the surah and the beginning of the next surah will have a connection. So it's kind of really fascinating.
You said Khatam, right? So Surah Fatiha and Surah Nas are like this.
Are connected.
Because it's a ring.
Exactly. So there's a connection, and in the parallel, you'll see a clear parallel between Surah Nas and Fatiha if you put it next to each other. Okay, so now you have this wa, na'budu wa nasta'in, and then all of this, why are we worshiping? Because of this led us, all of this, we're saying this, alhamdulillah, and it leads us to, what else can we do but worship you? And then once we worship you, we realize we can't even do that. We need help. And so now we need help, and what type of help do we need? Sirat al-Mustaqim. Ihdina as-Sirat al-Mustaqim. Now there's another thing that you can get into, all the different lams, alif lams in the Quran, in Fatiha. They're not all the same. You don't all translate them, the praise is due to Allah. No, all praise. There's different types of al in Arabic. Some of it has to do with a category. Some of it has to do with all. Some of it's going to be the specific one. Some of it's going to be the general genre of it. Right? So even that, we have to get into a little bit of detail so you can actually get some of the beauty of the al. But as-sirat, not just any sirat, the sirat al-mustaqim. And then it's specified. And then you'll see an'amta is a verb. So here it's interesting. An'amta is a verb. We think of three categories. What are the three categories? Those you've blessed, and not those, two, one positive, an'amta, and two negative, which are what? Were the two groups we don't want to be like.
Misguided.
Maghdub and dallin. Those are nouns. But an'amta is a verb. And there's many reflections. What's a reflection on that? Why would an'amta be a verb and maghdub and dallin be nouns? That's beautiful. It's a beautiful reflection. Is that it requires active effort and continuous effort. Versus al-maghdub and dallin, it's kind of like you can fall in that state and you're there. There's no action needed, right? Actions needed to get out of that state. Efforts needed to get out, to work hard and continually be vigilant, right? What else? And amta is also past tense. So we don't know how the future is going to hold. But those who you've already blessed, so we're talking about the prophets and the siddiqeen and shuhada, we want to be like them because their case is closed. For anyone right now, their hearts could change. So we're looking at those who you have blessed and we can be certain that they're in a good state. So that's who we want to be like.
It's also adab, right?
It's also adab.
That Allah has blessed them, but you're not attributing misguidance.
Right. So you can say an'amta, that you bless them. Versus here, maghdub and dallin are passive. They were misguided. You misguided them, or you. That's what Shaitan says. You led me astray. Versus we don't attribute negative things to Allah. So you often see active versus passive tense in the Quran because of adab. You'll see the active switch to the passive. When it's something positive, Allah, you did it. When it's something negative, you make it passive. In the Quran, you'll see that adab. And that's often not, subtleties are not often translated, right? Other people are saying that this is not three groups of people. It's actually one group. It's those who you blessed, who were not maghdub and not dallin. So we're actually not even talking about those other groups. We're not even giving them the time of day. We're actually just saying we're just describing one group. It's not three different groups. Because some people say that they attribute this to one group of one religion, another religion, those who, but the difference is that why are there two groups? Because there's two ways you can make mistakes, right? You can make mistakes by having ilm and not having amal, having knowledge but no action, right? You know, but you don't act upon it. And you can get misguided by having action and no knowledge. Those are the two different ways. That's why there's two ways here versus there's a unity of an'amta. The ni'mah is just one, but the path of going astray is there's multiple. You can go through both ways, right? But the cool thing is that some say that this is actually all one group. We're just describing the an'amta alayhim are those who, not and those who, but those who were not, because there's no wow here actually. It's not saying an'amta alayhim wa ghayr al-maghdub wa ghayr al-maghdubi wa alayhim wa la dallin. There's no wow here. So some can interpret this in different ways, and that actually adds some beauty because actually one group of people, that those who you had amta, they were not the ones who did this or that. Okay, so that was pretty fascinating when I learned that there's those different opinions there. Okay, now what's the difference in tajweed? We talked about sound effect. I want you guys to always, when you're reading the Quran, think about the sound effect now. When you're looking at the meanings of the words, how the meaning, you can even try to guess the meaning based on how it sounds, right? And there's so many examples of that we can't go into right now. But what right here, maghdub, right? What's maghdub? It sounds angry, right? They're the ones who got the anger, and then dallin. What does that sound like? Went astray, far astray. You know, so there's even in the mad and the tajweed, there's some indication of that meaning.
Yeah, it's mud lazim al-kalami, right? Which is the longest mandatory mud.
Right.
So you can't even do it short.
Right. You have to go very long, right? So that's kind of fun. One of the examples somebody says about what's worse, maghdub or dallin, they say maghdub is worse, and it's prioritized first versus second, because like a kid, doesn't know and they drop something, and you get upset, but you don't get as upset because they didn't know, but they were doing action, they were doing silly things, and they knocked something over. Versus somebody, a teenager, who knows very well they shouldn't be doing this, and then they do something, and then they do it wrong, then you're more upset at the one who had the knowledge. And so having knowledge, being Muslim, having the message actually is a higher responsibility. That when you fall, when the imam falls, when the leaders fall, that's why the Prophet ﷺ was so careful with delivering the message, that the responsibility is so much higher when you do have the knowledge. Okay? So I'm going to skip a few of these things. We already talked about some of this. Okay, so anything else? Any reflections, thoughts? Yes.
So one cool thing about that I learned from Dr. Nashimi's class about, how you talked about the na'budu, like when we were describing Allah, he said that there's like a special hikmah behind the order of why it was like revealed that way. For example, it starts with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So he was talking about how like when you meet someone powerful, right? Like someone who's big, like maybe in modern world, like you're not gonna go up and like high five them. You're gonna be
Right.
You're gonna be a little scared, right?
A little bit of reverence.
Intimidated, right?
Right.
But then he says, then when you're intimidated by this powerful person, he says he's also Rahman and Rahim. Like despite being this big person, he's also there for you. He's
Subhanallah.
But then the thing is, when people hear that, they're gonna be like, oh, if he's Rahman and Rahim, it's very easy to be on overuse it, make it as excuse. So then he reminds people he's Maliki Yawmiddin.
Oh, subhanallah.
So he said, and
So
those
it's going through that different, having awe and Allah, Bismillah. Allah is a very powerful word, but then Rabb is also, so the use of Allah and Rabb and the different names gives us different levels of connection, so we can have a good balance between distance and reverence and proximity and approachability, which is something that some faiths struggle with, that Allah is too distant or Allah is too close and too human-like, right? So keeping that balance between our aqidah, but also having Allah is there for us when we need Him, but then He also there is beyond human, and He's not part of creation. Okay, that's beautiful. Yes.
Can you retranslate?
Maghdub. How would you guys translate that?
The people who are in the wrath.
Who are in the wrath? Those who were ghadab is anger. Maghdub, who receive anger. It's a passive. Those who receive the anger. Okay. Yes.
I think you glazed over this part really quickly. In the second half, when we were talking about the verbs and the nouns, can you
Yes.
explain that a little deeper with time and association there?
Yeah. Can somebody explain that? The second part has time. So how is that significant? Having time in the second part and not in the first part.
First, can you clarify which one is Magdu, which one there's negative ones? The words?
Negative ones, maghdub
Words, right?
and dhalin, and an'amta is positive. Those who you bless, ni'mah. Ni'mah is like a blessing, right?
Okay, and that's a noun or a verb?
Ni'mah is a verb. Here, an'amta. Well, ni'mah is a noun, but the way it's said, an'amta, that you blessed, is a noun. Is a verb. And al-maghdub, anything that has al, the, will be a noun. So there's ways to characterize nouns and verbs that you can learn. That's one of the first earlier lessons you learn when you're studying Arabic. Is al-maghdub is those who received the anger, and ad-dhalin, those who went astray. So an'amta in the green is the verb, and the yellow are the nouns. I know it's hard to see from back there. Did that clarify at all, or did anyone want to explain this a little bit more? I know I went pretty quick.
The timing, I think that you're referring to is you're saying is that out of respect, you say you guided
Yes.
versus ones who were guided.
Yeah. And one thing that I always found is helpful, just okay, this is a chair, right? Chair is a noun, versus sitting is a verb, because I'm sitting now. So that can change. I could be standing, and then I'm sitting. The chair doesn't change. Another way to look at it is runner versus running? Right? Anyone a runner here? Nobody's a runner. Okay. Has anyone ran before? Okay. Hopefully not from the cops or the ICE. All right. So basically, there's a difference between somebody. You can see somebody who's running, but you're like, that person is not a runner, right? They're not doing it right. They haven't done it before, right? So there's a difference between a characteristic that someone's a runner, this habitual, versus running is just a time-based thing that they happen to be running, right? So that's one of the ways. So when we say, interestingly enough, when someone passes away, what do you say? Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. How do you translate that?
To Allah, we belong, to Allah we return.
To Allah we belong, or we come from, and to Allah we return, right? So, or we say it's from Allah we come, and to Him we are returning, right? So we're putting in a verb oftentimes in raji'un. But inna lillah, we are from Allah, we belong to Allah. Wa inna ilayhi, to Him, it's not saying returning. Ar-raji'un, we are returners. Raji'un, it's like runners, not running. So we are returners to Allah. So it's, and oftentimes people translate that in the future tense. And to Allah we will return. They even put a will in there. And there's definitely no verb, and there's definitely no future tense, because you have to have a future tense. You have to have a verb to even have a tense. So we actually don't have a future in there. So we often put it like inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We are from Allah and we are returning to Allah. No, it's actually we belong to Allah and we are returners to Allah. That gives you the insight that we are constantly returning to Allah. It's not just when we die. It's a constant process, because that is who we are. That is intrinsic to us, that we are raji'un. And we miss that when we mistranslate verbs to nouns and nouns to verbs. Yes.
So I get the word to speech now, but I think what I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around is when Allah talks about the people who are lost.
Yes.
So the people who incur His wrath,
Yes.
He uses the noun
Yes.
as if it's permanent. Those people are gone, they're lost. But when He talks about the believers, it's a verb, so they could still get lost.
That's
They're
true.
in the process of working on their
So that is one very beautiful reflection, is that it requires us what, you forgot your name. Huh? Hamid, right? It was saying, I think it was alluding to that it requires active process. It's not set in stone. You have to continue to work at it as a believer. One, but on the other hand, it's an'amta, which is past tense. So you're referring to people in the past who you are referring to, that Allah gave them the blessing. The one, it wasn't themselves, Allah gave it to them. So if Allah can give it to them, Allah, you gave it to them, you can give it to me too. Because it wasn't intrinsic. One, that's the insight. Two, al-maghdub. So we're saying, don't make us like those whose fate was sealed, that they were this. Because there could be somebody who has Allah's anger right now and they turn from it. And there could be somebody who is astray right now and they turn back, because we may be in those groups, but we want Allah to move us from these groups to this group. But we don't want Him to put us in these groups in which it becomes a permanent characteristic of them and it becomes a noun, right? So that's another wisdom. So you can, all day you can think about these insights as to why these words were used in that way, and you get new insights from it. Some of it, you have to be careful because you don't want to just interpret the Quran in any way. There's rules to do it. Language is part of it. There's other aspects of how interpretation is done. So you should rely on learning some tafsirs and talking to scholars and checking your reflections. But one thing Imam Majid recommends is for all of us to have a Quran journal. And when you're reading the Quran, you have reflections, you write it down, and you reflect on the journal. The more you learn Arabic, the more you can actually get deeper insights. Okay, any other questions? Any other reflections?
One question I have.
Yes.
I don't know if it is off topic. So,
Yes.
do you think it is allowed to read Quran at night time, being on the bed and laying down on the bed?
So there's people who remember Allah lying, sitting in different positions. So there's a dhikr is allowed to be done in any position. And Quran is a form of dhikr. So there's adab with the Quran, of course. And that may be a little bit outside the scope, but there's an entire, we should all study the adab and the etiquette of the Quran, where to recite, how to recite. But generally, remembering Allah and doing dhikr is allowed while you're lying down as well.
Just on that point about the noun, I think that's a very beautiful point. We don't think of those nouns as permanent states, all right? Because I just wanted to just share in Surah 26, Surah Shu'ara, verse 20, Musa alayhi salam actually says to Pharaoh, when Pharaoh says, basically, you're a criminal, you were from the kafirin, and you're going to talk to me? And he says, I was from the Daleen. Like I was lost and then I found my way. So Musa alayhi salam actually refers to himself as Daleen. He says, قَالَ فَعَلْتُهَا إِذَا وَأَنَا مِنَ الضَّالِينَ. I was from the Daleen, but he said I was never a kafir though. So that's how he responds to Pharaoh, that he was in the state of Daleen and Allah took him out, that he was guided. That's a word he uses for himself.
That's
in the
good
past.
insight. Yeah, and that's interesting how the nouns and the group, and also he didn't say ana, I was Daleen. He said ana mina Daleen. I was, and that min could be interpreted in different ways as well, in terms of like I was amongst them or I was of them. There's different interpretations. So that's where all the exciting science of the Quranic interpretation comes, and part of it is language based, part of it is also context based. That based on things that happen in the world. That's why this is one of the sciences that you can continually to get new insights from that people reflect on and do new tafsirs. It's not one tafsir that's just said and done. There's always, every era has to have tafsirs that takes in the new knowledge and interprets things, especially in terms of the science as well, that sometimes gets proven or added some nuances in the Quran based on new discoveries. Okay, anything else? Some of the sisters? Any other reflections? Omer?
I have just a few announcements I want to get.
Yeah. So we'll wrap up then. Was this helpful? Okay. What are you guys going to get out of this? Well, how is this going to help each and every one of you? Sorry?
There's two of you.
Two of us? Okay, you clarified. safe and sound. Okay. All right.
Actually, basically, some of the things you explain, it helps us understand. And we know that Quran is written in a way
Right.
no human can write.
Right.
Some of the examples you gave, the noun verb portion,
Right.
the connection with Bismillah and all that,
Right.
that can enlighten us that okay, how they are different, that a human writes.
Right.
So
Subhanallah.
this kind of helps us to motivate us to.
That's a beautiful point. Beautiful. I mean, if you look at the hadith, if somebody studies the hadith and they say the Quran, it's completely different language. One. So the Prophet, even if you say that he couldn't have known all this, he wasn't the knowledge, but even the style of the writing is, or the style of the Quran is so different, and it's not human. I mean, this level of just the Prophet just coming up with this on the spot and across 23 years, different portions. It just gives you, this is why the miracle of the Quran is, they say, is locked in the language of it, right? So what I always say is, like, if you were in Musa alayhi salam's time and you missed the stick becoming a snake, then you also missed the sea splitting, and you missed all these miracles, you'd be pretty sad, right? If we are in this time and we have this miracle, because we didn't see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we didn't experience his character. We didn't spend, but he left us this. This is our legacy. This is the gift he left us. With a lot of difficulty, he received it and he passed it on. Many people struggle to preserve this over many, many generations to get it to us. I mean, there's places, I just came back from Spain, and there's mountains in Spain that when Granada fell, they were exiled into these mountains. And they were supposed to, the contract and the treaty allowed them to stay there. They didn't have to leave. That was part of the agreement. Why they surrendered Alhambra was because they were going to go live in the mountains, and they just couldn't be in Alhambra. And there were still like thousands, and some say 70,000 Muslims that were in Granada even after it was conquered, because they didn't think they'd all have to leave. They've been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so then the new leader of the church came, and they started persecuting, and there's actually, they still have history of where that was happening, and the buildings are still there, and they were having to renounce their faith. They were not allowed people. There's names of people who were hidden Muslims, former Muslims, things like that. But in the mountains, they still find in some of the old homes that a wall will fall, and they'll find Qur'ans that were buried, right? Because the resistance in those mountains lasted for over 100 years, right? And then some people hid their faith, they say even beyond that. So there is Qur'ans, and this is documented in China as well, and Russia, and in communism, that there were Qur'ans. So people went through a lot to just protect and preserve the Quran, let alone all the memorization that happened. And so it's very amazing that we have access to it, and we can access that miracle right now because of that. Anything else? Okay, well, inshallah, some of these are tools, so you can use those tools. The reason, I mean, I'm not a sheikh, okay? And the goal of Fawaqih and what we're trying to do here is to allow everyone to take that journey. You don't have to become a sheikh or an expert on Quran to be able to reflect on the Quran and to engage it and to develop the tools and to be able to explore it and learn within guide rails. You don't start doing your own interpretation and coming up with fatwas and stuff like that, but just as a personal level to do ibadah, to enrich our ibadah, right? And so that's what we were really trying to show, is that all of us can be empowered to do that. And imagine how amazing the Muslim community already is, right? And we saw that shining in Palestine. We saw that shining in how people respond. We see that in Ramadan. We see that at the number of masjids growing. We see that the youth involved. We see that at all these new halal places opening up. People love Islam. They love the Prophet. Imagine, this is without the Quran to a large degree. At least without the love of the Quran is there. The recitation is often there. Even that sometimes is lacking. People, you'll be surprised how many people can't read the Quran out there. But imagine if we were inspired by the meaning of Quran, and every day we're standing in prayer and we're actually not just standing, but we're understanding. Imagine how much more benefit we could bring to ourselves, our communities, and to those around us, and teaching the broader society some of these meanings. And I think it will enrich not just our ibadah, but also our family lives, our professional lives, our creativity, because لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ, I think we'll all get smarter if we do that. Okay, Jazakallah khair, everyone. I'll leave it to Umar. Inshallah now, and we'll see you next week. I just wanted to thank everyone who put this together. Jazakallah khair. Put all the hard effort, obviously led by Umar. Farouk, mashallah, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. So I just wanted to make everyone make dua for them. All the setup and everything is not easy to do that.
It's not full screen, but you get a picture. Oh, it's full screen now, right? And special thanks to all of my volunteers who do help with all this setup. And thank you all for coming. And I hope you come again, inshallah, because next week we're going over Surah Al-Falaq with, again, Ustad Saif Omar. So if you enjoyed this, please come back. Also, please give me feedback. We'd love to know where we can improve, what you enjoy, so we can keep doing it. We have a video game night happening this Saturday at 5:30 to 7:30. Normally we have one every Tuesday. We are still having one next Tuesday, but this week we were unable to do it due to an emergency, so we're doing it again on Saturday. We hope you can come to that. We are doing our last Islamic trivia night of the year. The bonus topic is historical Muslim figures. And admission to this one is free, so come by. We have more Bailey hijabs. We have a lot. We got a lot for Black Friday. Yeah. We have a very special volunteer training and activity that's going to happen on December 13th. That is a Saturday. We don't have all the exact details figured out, but if you're a current volunteer or you're a new volunteer and you just want to get involved, please come up to me. We'll do a whole thing. We'll ideate. We'll figure out the structure of everything. We'll do bowling at the end probably. So come by. We hope you have fun. And the last thing we are doing is we're having a special talk with Uthman Al-Ghalib in our Islam and Popular Media series. The title of the talk is Remembering the King Within, and it's going to be going over the necessity of Islamic masculinity through the lens of The Lion King. And then after that, we'll watch The Lion King. So I might get coached by the music haters, but please come to that. That's going to be on Sunday. The date is wrong. It should be December 14th. And if you have questions about these, if you want to join our WhatsApp group, you can scan this right over here. Please ask me any other questions. If you want, before Ustad Saif Omar runs out of that masjid, you can ask him a question too. He's like, I gotta go.
Shukran. No, I actually have some of the Fawaqih books there. If you guys want to look at the curriculum, you can do that. I also wanted to make a plug. Have you guys heard of Minna?
Yes.
Muslim Youth in North America. So there's a camp coming up. It's some of you guys, if you're older than 18, you could be a counselor. I don't know if they have spots left. They usually fill up on those, but there's also some spots for under 18. If you have a sibling or you know someone who's under 18, please do grab this. I'm just doing my daughter's involved with this, so she asked me to promote it. They have a few spots left. It's December 21st, 27th. That minhah really shaped me, and I know my brother as well, in terms of like our identity and our learning as Muslims. And these camps are really fun too. So if you guys know anyone interested to get involved, please.
There's also job openings. I think they're looking for some people.
Are they?
Yeah. So if any of you are interested,
Okay.
yeah.
Look into this. It's right here.
And
I have a question about Rocket.
Yes.
so I guess that's everything. We hope you had a fantastic time. I think we'll quickly conclude this with a glossary, and then we really appreciate your help if you could help us pack up. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر سبحانك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you for coming. We hope you enjoyed yourself, and we'll see you next week, inshallah.
Questions?